Hi everybody, in the previous video we discussed rollbacks and now I want to put it in the context of a database error because a database error will often cause a rollback. So let's go ahead first and have a look at what goes on in our application. I can go to products, okay, and I can make an operation here which is like, let's try entering a row with 78 and I will get an error of this type, okay. And just like before, this is an error that is kind of annoying, cannot insert null into column product ID. Let's turn this into a primary key violation. Let's have a look at our products table definition or entity class. In it we can see that it's defined as identity, so I'll remove that, and defined as DB read only, which means that it will not be part of update or insert, it will only be part of select, so I'll remove that as well. And this is actually a bug in our demo. The database and the code does not match, but let's look what we have right now. We can go to products and enter a new product. And if we try to enter a product with the same code, we'll get a primary key violation that if we'll proceed on, it will roll back the transaction. And this is very important to understand. When we're having a database error, the transaction actually rolls back in most cases. You can actually control it, and I'll show you in a few seconds how, but by definition, the transaction is rolled back. So I'm doing this, I get a primary key error, and it will roll back. There's a helper property for that called onDatabaseErrorRetry, which if it's set to false, when the transaction is rolled back, it will actually leave the controller. Okay? So when the error had happened, the transaction is rolled back without recovery and the controller closes. Now the same principle applies in terms of stack. So if I'll open the supplier controller, which has a task-based transaction, and the products controller underneath it, and it's part of the supplier transaction, if I'll go and create a primary key violation, the task will collapse and the transaction would roll back all the way up to here. Now, how can we control database errors and their behaviors? Well, for that, there are handlers. And I can say handlers dot add database error handler. Here I can choose the database error type that I want. I can handle all errors. And when I invoke it, I'll get an E parameter to my lambda expression that has information about the error. Let's put a breakpoint over here and see what we get. Products, let's create an error. And we can see here that the E parameter that we've received has several useful properties. We can see that entities that trigger that error. We can see the error type, in this case it was constraint failed. We can see the original database exception. We can see whether or not it was handled, and we can see the handling strategy. In this case it's rollback and recover. And if we review the options for handling strategy, we see that there are many handling strategies. One is called rollback, which rolls the stack. Rollback and recover, that will roll back and still return to the row. Ignore, retry, throw, that will actually throw the exception. Abort task and abort all tasks, that will actually collapse either the current controller or all of the controllers. And this is very useful when you want to start tweaking with the database error behavior, rollback, and everything around that. And if you want to dive a bit deeper, if you look at our documentation of business process and UI controller, you will see that there is a definition for, let's go back here a bit to our business process class. There's a definition of two events. One is called database error, preview database errors that happens immediately when the database error happens, and the last one is database error code that happens after all of the handling of errors, and this gives you even deeper control of how database errors are handled. And in the migrated code, the chief code that is in charge of the way database errors are handled is in a class called common, where you'll find two methods that take place that are major for this, which is database error occurred and previous database error, when you can see and control all of the behavior of errors in the migrated application. Every error has its condition, when to roll back, when not, why, when to put a message, and all of that is controlled here. And this code is also the code that's eventually in charge of writing the error to the error log or any external tools that uses it. So the games here is database errors occurred and preview database error. Now the order of error handling is that whenever a database happens, the preview database error event is triggered and handled in this code. After that, all of the handlers of type database error in the stack gets executed, and eventually the last event that happens is database error occurred, that does the final handling of the error before actually performing the operation. I hope you find this useful with your dealing with transactions, locking, errors, rollback, and all around that. Thanks for watching.